everybody. Welcome to the latest installment of Moonhawk Studios Presents. It is season 17. This is episode number 5, and I am your host, Mac Paladin. With me in the studio, as always, is my good friend Adam.
Hello.
Kevin's rolling around here.
Somewhere right over here. Hi.
Woo! Teddy Van's in the hizzy.
I can speak.
That's always a plus. We hope.
Yeah.
And the Galax is here.
I am.
That's right. As always, we allegedly have a great show for you tonight. But before we get into that, let's have Adam start us off with the news.
Well, not much this week. I mean, biggest news is more Petty got sick, so our Sunday broadcast got railroaded a bit.
Oof.
Sidetracked. Yeah. I mean, he literally couldn't speak that day.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta make up that review on Friday night.
Fun times.
Not really. See, there is still family drama in the margins. That's all I'll say there. And then holiday plans have been reordered and rescheduled, and hopefully they stick this time. And that's about all I can say without getting into details I can't get into.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Kevin, you're up.
There we go.
Yeah. Yeah. Nothing. Really much happening around here. Again, just simply weekends at the AMC. Although this week is going to be pretty slow because all we pretty much got is a new Miyazaki film and a bunch of old movies and re-releases. So probably going to be a dead week this week, and that's why I only have one day of my shift. So with that being the case, Petty, you're up.
Well, yeah, as I mentioned last week, my sister came back from, I guess, vacation. She went to see my niece and my other sister, and she brought back the plague. Not like COVID or anything like that, just, general upper respiratory shenanigans that you can get when dealing with children.
Right.
So I ended up getting it this week, and I could not speak on Saturday and Sunday, so that was fun. Also this week, my dad's 2015 Mitsubishi Mirage, after 220,000 miles, the transmission decided to say, I don't want to exist anymore, and keeled over.
Bummer.
Yeah, so he got a new to him, a pre-owned 2022 Mirage over the weekend. And we found out it has the Android Auto infotainment system in there. Mitsubishi does a stupid thing where it doesn't have the settings for it unless you plug a phone in. So you'd have no way of knowing it had, Apple CarPlay or Android Auto unless you plugged the phone directly into the USB port. So yeah, we learned that his car has that. So my sister and I were thinking about getting him a GPS for Christmas, but now since he doesn't need that, I got him a car mount for his phone so it can charge and not be bouncing around the cab. Because before he would just, when his phone was charged, he'd just put it in between the seats. With his new car, that's where the side airbag deploys.
Oof.
Yeah. So, literally where he puts it, best case, it would just knock his phone, in case of an accident, just knock his phone under the seat. Worst case, it could destroy his phone enough to cause a lithium fire, which would not be good.
Eesh.
No,
No, it would
not
not.
at all. Not at all.
So yeah, like I told him, yo, you shouldn't be doing this. But basically, he's probably going to say, oh, I don't need that car mount thing. Bro, I'm trying to literally protect your ass. So yeah, that's on the way, and then yeah, just being sick sucks. And yeah, I think that's it from me.
All right. Alex, what do you got?
Hopefully not an illness. My mom has had a bad cold for the last few days. Thankfully, Dad hasn't gotten it, and I don't seem to have gotten it yet, at least. But it's still within the... She's starting to feel better, but not all the way there, so who knows. We think she picked it up at the church Christmas fair last weekend, probably. She went to the doctor and has been tested, and it's not flu and it's not COVID, so just a bad cold, but still not being able to talk for a day and being almost completely without energy is never a fun thing. Let's see, not too much else going on. Pretty much same as usual for video games. Looking forward to the Pokemon DLC next week, and though I have not started it yet, I did pick up the new Dragon Warrior Monsters, the Dark Prince game, or Dragon Quest Monsters, excuse me. Only the first couple of ones were Dragon Warrior Monsters, and that was back because we couldn't use Dragon Quest in this country for a while. But I actually played those ones, so that sticks in my head.
Right.
So yeah, looking forward to giving that a spin. That's about all I got, I think.
All right. The saga continues with restructuring the entire studio. I did some introspective self-flagellation and watched the stream of my former partner in crime, just to get an inkling of what was out there. And it was about as miserable as I expected. To reiterate what I said last week, I have decided to wipe the slate virtually clean for personal well-being and for legal reasons, just to be on the safe side is basically all I can think of to say on that. I've reached an age to where this kind of stuff no longer makes me angry. It makes me tired and it makes me sad. Because, like, I am what is classically defined as middle-aged. And so time lost, time that I can't get back, is a lot more devastating to me now than it was when I was in my 20s. And I don't have time for bitterness or resentment. And you know, I'm just, at this point, I'm just on a journey of self-improvement. That's all I'm trying to do now. With that in mind, we are fully rebooting the Lavenders animated series. I have secured the talents of the individuals that I will need in order to complete this stuff, and I will be doing a lot of the illustrative and at least placement of 3D stuff. I bought a cityscape generator, a futuristic cityscape generator for Blender, and so I will need to figure that out. I will first need to get a working copy of Blender, and then I will need to sort of remake Neo San Diego. Well, we'll see. We've got an asset in the Dropbox that is generically produced by this generator. So I don't think, given that there's an AI element to it, I don't think anybody can actually claim moral rights to it. So I'm less worried about that. It's simply a matter of figuring out how it actually works, because that wasn't my wheelhouse, and I need to make it so. I need to just do a lot of stuff myself, and I think that this will curb a lot of future resentment until such time as I can actually afford to pay everyone to do their jobs without any kind of guff. Not sure how else to put that. But that's really going to be the only ethical way to go. Methinks. And so that's what I'll be focusing on. Is I'm just going to focus on a singular project, and that is going to be the Lavenders and finishing some comics and some pinup commissions that I've got, and just go from there. And with that in mind, I do have an update posted on the Discord for my stream schedule, which is going to be 100% less FPS games. It's not my preferred bailiwick. I got into certain games because I thought it was something that my friends enjoyed, and so I liked hanging out with my friends, and so the only way to hang out with them was to play these games, and turns out that's not the best reason to do a thing. So I dropped Paladins and Overwatch 2 from my schedule, and it's a shame. I did like playing the games. I just and I was getting better at them. It's just not my it's not my thing. I'm an RPG and retro gaming guy. That's what I do, and that's what I like doing. And so our Monday schedule is, talked it over with Golix, and we're going to be doing or instead of strategy Sundays, we're going to be doing a mid-evening stream to complete Langrisser, Hikari no Matsue, hopefully starting this coming Monday, and then and yeah. I want to make sure that the stream didn't cut out there. Everybody still here?
We are.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm sorry. I got a weird symbol on my screen, and I was like, well, that's no good. But yeah, so tall and short of it is that I'm going to be focusing on that one thing, and doing the startup on a couple of webcomics that have been long neglected, and their prequel stories need to be told. And then as far as the feature films are concerned, I still have all of the recorded dialogue. I still have artwork from artists that I am on good terms with, and I will use that as the baseline to restart. Yeah, like I said, I don't see the point of trying to do pale imitation add-ons to something that isn't going to be completed in its original form. So that's pretty much it for that. My new schedule with Up Late with Mace, I am going to be doing Honkai Impact the Third a little earlier. I'm going to flip that around so that I do my Retro Gaming Emporium art stream at 9, and I'm going to be doing Honkai Impact the Third at 6 on Tuesdays. Of course, for the remainder of the season, we'll be doing MSP here on Wednesdays at from 9-ish until 10:30-ish Mountain Standard Time, and then assuming all goes well, I will be doing Mary Skelter Nightmares tonight at 11. So be looking forward to that, and of course Honkai Star Rail Thursdays, Hard on Fridays, and like I said, everything else is posted in the Discord, so we can see that. So without too much further ado, let's get to the meat of this whole thing here, the thing that everybody's tuned in for. Our guest tonight is Jeffery T, none other than Jeffery T. Darlington of General Protection Fault. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thank you.
Indeed. You have the distinction of having one of the longest running webcomics on the web.
Oh, there are quite a few that are older than GPF, but yeah, I'm a fossil.
That is still there. How about that? To some degree or another.
Yes, Sluggy Freelance.
It's definitely one of the
Kevin
earlier
Kell.
phase ones.
What's that, Jeff?
Oh, I was just thinking Sluggy Freelance, Kevin and Kel. You know, there are quite a few that are older than GPF, but yeah, not that many, I guess.
Indeed. So, for the uninitiated, tell us a little bit about GPF. What's the thing that everybody should know when they wade into this pool?
Well, GPF primarily is the story of a small group of nerds who work for a small software company, and over time they have gone through all sorts of misadventures, ranging from being sent to a Alcoholics Anonymous type group for people who code too much, to world domination plots, time travel, alien invasions, maybe a sentient slime mold or 2, 3, few billion. You know, just the usual standard stuff you might find in a webcomic.
All right. And we don't get a lot of veterans of your stature on the program. What initially made you think webcomics? That's a thing.
Well, I guess it's old. GPF has been old enough that I don't know that the term webcomic had actually been coined yet when GPF first started. When I came up with the original idea for the comic, I actually had fledgling aspirations for, wait for it, newspaper syndication.
Ooh.
But then I realized that the topic was probably going to be way too niche, and that people, you know, your average grandma reading the Daily Post is probably not going to care. And I had dabbled in a little bit of web development in college and realized, you know, I could probably pay for a domain name and pay for a web server, and I know HTML. I could probably write some scripts to automate this, and well, next thing you know, up it goes.
Yeah, that golden era between 97 and 2001, huh?
I know some of the old ones also like started as like comics in a college newspaper or something. So
Yeah, there
similar
were
deal.
quite a few like that. Yeah.
Now, so you started a lot like Holbrook did with Kevin and Kel, since we're name dropping. you had a lot of the same ideas, and because it wasn't syndication material necessarily, you just kind of did your own thing.
Yeah, I do know that there were a few other comics that kind of preceded me. I knew of Steve Troop's Adventures of Mayberry and Melonpool
Oh yeah.
and Thomas Dye's News Hounds. I knew of those. I had seen them. I learned about J.D. Iliad Frazier's User Friendly when people started accusing me of being a pale imitation. So yeah, I just thought that this will do something, maybe it wouldn't do something, and if it doesn't go anywhere, then yeah, I didn't lose anything, and here I am, quarter of a century later, and I can't stop. Well, I am gonna stop, but
eventually, yeah. The end is nigh, huh?
yeah, GPF is now officially in its final year, and I do plan to post the final comic probably October of 2024.
Oh wow, that's coming up. That's coming up quick. We're already 2 months past the October anniversary. So
Well, it's November 2nd is the anniversary.
Oh, okay.
So just 1 month.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go for some structure here. Adam, if you wouldn't mind.
Okay. I mean, there is so much to cover, start with, so many angles, given a quarter century of history. But one thing that I've always wondered is, was there a particular reason why you named it after one of the worst Windows error messages you could get back in the Windows 95, Windows 98 days?
Because it was funny.
Uh, I figured it might be something like that, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I just wanted something that was going to be obviously geeky. And of course, Microsoft years later would have to change things and you no longer could get a general protection fault in Windows. You just got blue screens of death. So
It was a little too late to call it BSOD comics.
doesn't quite roll off the tongue.
No, it doesn't. I mean, do you get questions about it from people who might not have even existed when general protection faults were a thing?
Maybe a few times I get that. I mean, it is in the stupidly humongous FAQ on the site if people are really, really curious. But
I'll get hate for this, but some people call them Zoomers. I call them Gen Zygote.
I'm not sure that's as accurate as it once was because
True.
they're not the latest generation anymore.
True.
Yeah, Zoomers are at like 20 now.
Yeah, but didn't they get like 30 years worth of mileage out of shitting on millennials?
Maybe, but I know Generation Alpha is a thing now. Because apparently we're being...
The fuck are naming these?
I don't know.
Since Generation X, nobody has had a... Okay, first off, you can't name generations except retroactively anything else. The Silent Generation, the Greater Generation, and Baby Boomers were kind of named as it was coming up because people knew that people were coming home from war and boning down.
It was used in the 60s, yes.
But otherwise, you can't know what a generation is going to be famous for until later on, generally. So since Generation X, they've just been going alphabetically, but trying to go with something that like sounds good.
What's alphabetical about millennials?
Millennials were Generation Y for a long time,
I know. I'm just noting that
but
it's no
they
longer.
decided to actually give them a name because it turned out that that's the generation that is most notably about the turn of the millennium.
Right, but
Gentlemen,
anyway.
I'm going to.
Anyway,
Captain
Zoomers and
Kirk
Alpha
this.
don't have anything else to call them yet.
Yeah. Anyway,
I'm gonna Captain
Anyway.
Kirk this.
Yeah, anyway.
Say, gentlemen.
Yeah. Yeah.
anyway, getting back on track here, since we are discussing about the ages, like, back when you were starting this thing, did you think that this was going to last a year or two?
No. I mean, I had before anything went online, I had basically a backlog of maybe a year and a half worth of comics that I had scripted, and I managed to stretch that out to be about like the first 2.5 years of the comic by adding more material. So I knew I had material, and I knew that I could mine that for quite a while, but yeah, I had no idea if I was going to keep doing it for a month or two after I'd started. And just over time, things started picking up, and then I'm getting a book deal, and then I'm getting invited to Keenspot, and just was surprised at how well it took off.
So, did this ever become your day job?
Maybe when I got laid off from from the day job once, but no, I have been working a day job pretty much the entire time.
Like, that's an interesting track, because it's very different than what we've had with a lot of web comic creators over the years, either aspirational or reality. A lot of people made this their job or wanted to make it their job, their living. And was that a conscious effort to just keep it a side deal?
No, it was more of just couldn't quite get the critical mass. I mean, GPF's got a decent following, and we get decent page views when the ad market doesn't tank. But I don't know that I've ever really had the critical mass to make that a full-time job. There were a few times we and my wife had discussed, she would work her job and I would just do GPF on the side. But it never, I don't think, I've always admired the artists who have taken that plunge and made it work. People like Howard Taylor from Schlock Mercenary. But I've never, I guess I've always had cold feet to take that plunge and do it whole hog.
That's not an uncommon thing I've heard. I mean, I myself tried adapting my sprawling sci-fi epic into a webcomic format, and let's just say it's been variable over the years. And I started in the golden age of '99, so. Did not mean for that to be a thought-terminating cliche.
Now, I'm like, I mean, I'm not sure what to say about that, because I'm like, anyway,
moving on.
So, are you pleased with the body of work that GBF has accumulated over the past quarter century?
Yeah, I'd say I'm pleased with it. might have been things I would have done differently if I had planned things a bit more thoroughly from the beginning, but I'm happy with it. I think the fans that do enjoy it have gotten a good bit of amusement out of it. I'm hoping that once I do wind things down, that I can be able to spin up another project and at least retain some of that readership. So we'll see how that goes.
Mm. So I suppose we should get into, the not so much elephant in the room, but you've mentioned it a couple of times, and I'm sure it is a pressing question. Why are you ending GPF Comics? Um,
I'm old. uh,
That
yeah,
that would do it. Yes.
yeah. I mean, I've been doing it literally for pretty much half my life now, and I'm not the spring chicken I was when I started. Developed a few health issues. Almost died this year. So,
Oof.
but all that's gotten under control and things are doing a lot better. But at the same time, I'm tired.
You want your life back,
I do want to get some of my
essentially.
life back, and I
Yeah.
want to branch out into some other things. I've dabbled a bit in prose writing. I've technically written a couple of unpublished novels, and have plenty more ideas that I would rather do, probably in prose form, just because I don't think my art skills are gonna be able to pull something like that off, and I can't at this time pay another artist to do them. So I'm hoping to be able to turn that into novel writing or something like that. But I think it's time. I think I've reached the point where I can give a hopefully satisfying conclusion to the story of GPF. Leave it open enough that people can make their own interpretations of things that are left unresolved, and just have people be able to see what is essentially a completed work from start to finish.
like, and how are you feeling about that? You know, this
Oh.
grand epic of yours coming to a close.
Every emotion that you can probably think of. Um, some relief, some grief, um, looking forward to having time to myself every now and then. It's been a roller coaster ride over the past couple of years, where I've been trying to make that decision and come to terms with it, and um, I'm happy with making that decision. I think it was the right time. But yeah, it's bittersweet.
I suppose it couldn't help but be at least that, given, just so many man hours dedicated to one thing, and as far as I know, like GPF hasn't had much of a break in the intervening years.
No, I've there was a hiatus between 2006 and 2008 where a lot of things happened. I moved, my son was born. I did some things to, keep the site going, but not much. But then beyond that, I've only really taken off at most maybe a few weeks at a time. And most of my quote unquote vacations from the comic, I'm still posting and then I go back and fill in the buffer. So as far as the site's concerned, it's still updating.
Yeah, I can see why at once you would want to step away from that, but also why there's going to be a range of emotions. Like, anyway, so delving deeper into GPF comics, I suppose we should, ironically enough, start at where things are now, and that is at the end. I mean, what is going on in this entropy war?
Well, the current story is, as you mentioned, the entropy war. It is basically our gang of computer geeks have, for the past several years, found themselves stranded in space on an alien spaceship, and the Earth has been missing, misplaced, I guess we could say. And our main hero, Nick Wellington, is now coming to terms with having to deal with his alternate universe self, who has managed to amass a following of his own alien war. And our gang is facing a daunting future battle between their alien allies and the vast alien empire that his alternate self is now controlling, all while trying to restore the Earth, which is frozen in time. And time is running out to be able to bring it back safely. And if that doesn't sound confusing, then I haven't been doing my job.
Well, I mean, this is the end result of 25 years of what we now call lore stacked on one another. Um, it because I did read GPF comics back in the day, like around 2002 to I think about 2007. And about the time when it was moving from a gag comic to the more serious stuff, like when serendipitous machinations was a thing. So it's not surprising to me that it continued in that direction. And I'm wondering what sort of pressure is on you for the finale here?
Well, I think most of the pressure is self-imposed. Um, the feedback that I've gotten from readers on the forum and an email and stuff has mostly been positive, but I personally feel like I owe it to everyone to give this story and thus the rest of the comic a satisfying conclusion that once everyone's going to be able to read this and say, yeah, that was okay.
Right. And hopefully that does pan out. But I suppose it's good that fan expectations, at the very least, aren't being risen to high levels. Because I've seen that in a number of works. And the end results can often be explosive, I'd say.
Well,
So-
as far as I know, nobody's complained yet. But my main feedback is my wife and my parents. So that was a joke.
Uh,
Well, good to know.
I understand. In the immortal words of Steve Rogers, I understood that reference.
Indeed. But what have the fans been saying about the impending end of GPF? Are they nervous? Are they happy? Are they trepidatious?
I think most of the feedback that I've gotten is more of, "Aw, man, you can't keep going. You're gonna end it now." So, so far, I don't think there's been any complaints about the story so far and how it's been going. Just more of, yeah, we don't want to see it end. So,
I'm like, I suppose like that is a positive thing ultimately. The readers are disappointed that the comic's ending, but not so much so that they are expressing virulent displeasure at it.
I might have culled all the really nasty fans for years ago. So,
Like anything's possible, I suppose. Like, let's see. So one thing I've been wondering is, has the techniques you use to create GPF changed in the quarter century of its existence?
you're gonna make me feel older and older every time you say it that way. So,
I,
um,
I can't help but do that because just a lot of my questions are time based here.
yeah. Uh, yeah. I mean, it might be shorter to list things that haven't changed. To be honest, I mean, when I first started uh, the comic, all the line work was done on uh, on paper with pen. I mean, originally the earliest ones were done on typing paper, and eventually moved to Bristol board. Went through a period where I went from standard pencils to non-photo blue and different software, all this stuff. Since 2008, it's been all digital. So various tablets and stuff. I currently use a Microsoft Surface Book and Clip Studio Paint. So yeah, it has evolved greatly over the years. Some of the evolution has been time-saving stuff. Some of it has just been technology moving forward.
And I guess the age-old question: do any of the physical art still exist, like framed somewhere, or have they all been lost to time at this point?
Um, I have a ginormous blue tub that weighs a ton that probably has all of the physical line art copies that have not been given away or what have you. Almost lost that. I think we had a minor flood in the house, and that was squirreled away in the basement where things got got wet.
Got a little damp.
Yeah, but fortunately that tub was watertight and survived, and all those original comics are still there. And you better believe that those digital copies are backed up multiple places.
So when the world does end, they'll be able to find General Protection Fault.
Well, I plan to keep the site up as long as I am financially capable. So,
That's good.
Mm. So, indeed, a record will be preserved for future generations. Like, and once again, that does get into another question of mine. Do you get any sort of feedback from newer fans?
um, I have a lot of feedback on people who maybe started GPF years ago and for whatever reason fell off, stopped reading, and then came back and said, "Whoa, this is still here, and these are new comics. This is still updating." And they'll, "Oh, okay," and they'll go back and reread everything. I've had quite a few um, quite a few fans who have said, "Oh, I started it reading near the beginning, and now I've introduced it to my kids, and I'm waiting for one of them to say, and then my kids introduced it to their grandkids." And that
In which
really will
case,
make
you
me
will
feel
turn
old.
yourself into dust at that point.
Yes, yes, but every so often, um, someone will come along and say, "I didn't know this existed," and wow, it's great. And I know I'm coming in at the end, but
I mean, at the very least, you didn't have to keep pace with technology because I do remember like the original incarnation of General Protection Fault was very much a workplace comedy type thing in a, let's say at the time, modern .com tech place
mhm.
or some variation there. It, you know,
Yeah, I look back at some of the old comics and see the big chunky CRT monitors and the big towering beige cases, and
mhm.
eventually, oh, now they got flat panel monitors. Oh, now they're talking about an iPhone versus a Palm Trio. So, um,
God, that made me feel old. What the hell?
I
but
mean, that era is further away than you think.
I know. That's the fucking problem.
I mean, we have not figured out how to manipulate time yet. So,
Yet.
like, anyway, but one thing I do remember from back in the day is there was quite a bit of grumbling when the more fantastical elements started creeping in. And then serendipitous machinations happened and took the comic in a much more dramatic direction.
yeah,
um
oh yeah.
you know I always wondered how big was that blowback, because I do remember seeing some anger about that, but it's always we're talking like 2002 2003, so seeing that was much more limited than we get today, because we are talking well before any sort of social media was a thing.
Yeah, and pretty much most of the feedback on that was probably email and forums at the time. Um,
Mhm.
I would say, looking back on it, I would say that while there was some very vocal detractors, I think they were a vocal minority. And I think that the folks that stuck it out and continued with the comic, I hope that they got something more out of it by, mixing the humor and the drama and the continuity, and not just having it be a gag a day thing. I think that I've always thought, and a lot of the feedback I have received over the years since has been, I've really enjoyed this. I like how much you've given the depth of the characters and given them so much to do. So I know that was, it seemed like a wild storm, and yeah, it hit my ego and bruised it quite a bit when that happened. But I also knew this was the direction I wanted to go. This was the story I felt that I wanted to tell. And I think that there were just some very vocal people who got a lot of, uh, shall we say, the airtime. But I don't know that there was a huge actual backlash. I think it was, some very vocal people who had a mouthpiece that they could use. But, the numbers didn't lie. The numbers kept going up for the readership. If I was losing people, I was gaining more people at the same time. So
Always go for the net positive.
Indeed. And so Serendipitous Machinations 2.
Incoming.
I'm like, well, I would be remiss if I didn't bring this up because, it was supposed to be a thing back in the day, but never ended up being a thing. And I'm seeing in the last news date from about a month ago that you still plan to make it a thing.
Okay, to add a little history there, after the Surreptitious Machinations story came out, I promised the readers that I would follow up on what happened with Nick and Key's future son, Todd, and what happened to Empress Trudy from the future, the alternate future, and finish that story. It went through quite a few different permutations. At one point, it was supposed to be an exclusive book through Plan 9 Publishing. Plan 9 disappeared, and so, well, it was going to be an exclusive through Keenspot Premium. And then I left Keenspot, and it was going to become an exclusive under GPF Premium. The bottom line on it is that the story has been scripted for quite a while, and I have over the years actually done different pages for it here and there. And I decided that, well, okay, I don't have time to do it and the main comic. I just don't have that bandwidth. But once the main comic finishes, there's no more excuse. So after I quote unquote officially retire from the comic itself, I will go back. I will finish the art for Surreptitious Machinations 2 and tack it on to the end of the archive and just make it an after the end story that will fill in that gap. It kind of tells how Todd meets the gamester and becomes kind of his agent, as we have seen in some of the previous comics in the main archive. So it's going to happen.
I must admire the commitment, if nothing else, because, yeah, a lot of people would have just left that on the cutting room floor after so much time.
Yeah, like I said, the script has been finished, and I've got maybe a third to a half of the art done. So that's a lot to throw away.
Hmm. True enough. True enough. And I suppose it will finally get those who still remember that this was going to be a thing off your back.
Every now and then I get that one email of, "Are you still going to do it? Are you really going to do it?"
Spite is a very powerful emotion. Like, so let me see here. I think I've run through my gamut of questions. Does anyone else have anything further on the subject of General Protection Fault?
I think I'm good.
Yeah, I think you've asked most of what I was wondering about.
Indeed. All right. Well, that's a lot to ponder.
Indeed.
Any special appearances? Anything that you're going to be doing coming up in the rundown to the end that you wanted to give a shout out to? Anybody you want to give a shout to?
No, not necessarily. I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't thank everybody who has read the comic over the years, even if they started with that beginning and said this isn't for me. Well, hey, I'm glad you stuck with me for as long as you did. And lots of great cartoonists who either came before me or even after I started that have been inspirations. There'd be too many to name there, but as for things that are coming up for me, not really. I'm looking forward to putting my feet up and playing a few video games and binging some stuff on streaming services. So.
All right. Hey, nothing wrong with that. All right. Well, Jeffrey, that brings our interview to a close, and I appreciate you taking the time to come out and visit with us for a little while, and tell us about all the things going on. And maybe we'll talk again when either after it's all said and done, or when the next big thing comes down.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You are welcome, of course, to stick around for our entertainment roundtable discussion. Ada and Kevin will be leading that and telling us about what's going on in the industry. But again, everybody, that was Jeffrey T. Darlington of General Protection Fault, the comic, and feel free to check it out at gpf-comics.com. You know the drill. Anyway, gentlemen, open fire.
All right. Let's see.
To the war room.
Yes. Indeed.
Where to start? Now, I think I know where to begin, and that is another celebrity death to mourn. And this one is saying legendary probably doesn't do him justice, but
Oh.
Norman Lear has finally died after 100 101 years of existence.
Oh wow.
Like,
Yeah, 101. Yep.
you know, like it's about that's almost as long as a human being can live. Yeah. And if you don't know who Norman Lear is, well, you're probably like under 30, let's say, because
Okay.
Or
you know
you're familiar with the stuff that he helped create, but you don't know that he did it.
right, but you do have to remember his heyday is the 70s. Like when people bring up Norman Lear, it's going to be his the stuff that he created in the 70s, All in the Family, and its entire universe, Maud and Good Times and the Jeffersons. Not so much say Gloria, but and One Life to Live. That's where people know.
One day at a
Norman Lear
time, you
from.
mean?
Yeah, one day at a time. Yeah. He did have hits outside of that decade. Notably, he was a producer on Different Strokes. But like I said, when it comes to Norman Lear, it starts with All in the Family. It'll go down to like the Jeffersons, Maude, Sanford and Son, and so on and so forth. That's kind of just what happens when you have a lot of successes to your name, or a lot of things. He certainly did create things that have their cult following, like Mary Hartman, or Fernwood Tonight, and its companion series, sequel series, America Tonight. Never sure on that. And he did have his flat out failure, like 704 Hauser. I'm like, which is actually the last of the All in the Family verse.
Yeah.
Because 704 Hauser is the physical location of Archie Bunker's house. Like, I don't know why they thought that was a good idea for a sitcom, especially in the 90s. But it didn't last long. But the fact that it was a thing at all has always baffled me. I'm like, and indeed, he also had a hand in the creation of Channel Umpty 3, which is a weird thing to say. But Channel Umpty 3 was a weird show.
Yeah.
And talking about Norman Lear is a bit difficult, because just going over the baseline stuff here in detail would take quite a lot of time, because it's just like All in the Family. Probably the second most important sitcom to ever exist. The first is I Love Lucy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I Love Lucy is like the sitcom, but right behind it is All in the Family. It's that important to not just sitcoms, comedy, just television in general, and getting into just the main show's legacy, is the subject of many retrospectives, documentaries, what have you. Not even getting into the importance of like the Jeffersons and black television, among other avenues. So we have lost a true titan this day. And I do wish we could do a more thorough retrospective here, but we only have so much time a week.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
So join us next week for our feature stuff this guy worked on. We'll be doing this for like 3 years, and no, I'm kidding. We won't do that.
No.
That's a Mike's hard pass. You have
I'm like,
earned one internet yike.
anyway, in Strike Watch news, the strike is officially over.
Yeah.
Indeed, SAG-AFTRA has voted overwhelmingly to pass the new contract, which was expected. And I know there are people who are disparaging this, especially online. A good rule of thumb is not so much don't pay attention what is being said online, but it's more the feelings of those who grumble online don't necessarily represent what's the actuality of the situation.
I don't know about it with this situation, considering that a lot of the people who are upset about this are the voice acting community, who probably are going to take it on the chin with this, considering the loopholes that are involved here.
I'm like,
I mean, I would get that feeling of sour grapes and everything, but there's legitimate concern that was not answered,
I've seen that,
and the fact of the matter is that this wasn't necessarily a widely accepted contract, because pretty much it only got passed because only 38% of the guild voted for it. There's like possibilities that a lot of members actually couldn't vote because they haven't paid dues because of the strike bankrupting them, and this is pretty messy. But at the same time, it's a case of, well, we're going to find out relatively quickly if the fears turn out to be true. So,
well,
it is what it is.
Well, no, we've talked about this before, but once again, Hollywood has its hierarchy, and the hierarchy won in this contract, and that and that tells you who is at the top and who's at the bottom of the pecking order. Hint: voice actors, voice-over actors, if you will, are at the bottom. Like, in fact, I think Fran Drescher addressed them as such. She called them low-level, maybe not rabble rousers, but I definitely saw the words low-level people in her.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a good thing to do. Honestly,
it's
Yeah.
not. It's not. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but I'm saying it's how she framed it.
That's pretty lame.
Yeah.
I'm like, but
there's
I also
no nice
get
way to
her
put that.
Yeah. Like, no, it's not nice. In fact, it's pretty damn dismissive. I mean, I get her perspective of, you've just gone through this war of attrition with the studios and you finally got your long sought after agreements. But there were better ways to address concerns than, basically shoving them aside and saying they don't matter.
Like, there's no war in Bossing Say. Wait, what?
That's
not the way.
As we say in the Midwest, pound sand down a hole.
Right.
That's what she told him, basically.
More or less. And, she's gotten her way in the sense that, the contract that was negotiated has been ratified. That is the contract for the next 3 years. I've seen some chatter about, should the voiceover community have their own union? Technically speaking, they do, like the TGA, but they're not that powerful.
Right.
Like, and not the least of which is because a good chunk of the voiceover community is non-union in various capacities. You know, because like Texas, for example, you know,
Right.
a lot of that stuff comes out of Texas, and back in the day, out of Canada. You know, so I'm not sure how powerful the voiceover people can be. So that makes it this extra frustrating.
Yeah.
But it's also, you know, I don't have any witty rejoinders here.
Yeah.
They're just gonna have.
At this point, at this point we just have to wait and see. And at this point, if something blows up, we'll know about it real quick.
Yeah.
I suppose so. It might not be real quick. It might be 3 years.
Well, I
from
mean,
now.
in terms of individual situations, like we're gonna find out probably relatively quickly if something does indeed blow up. But by the time we'll see how big it is by the time this contract comes up again. So that's what I'm getting at. Like for individual situations, not overall. I mean, overall, it's going to take to the end of the contract, but when it comes to individual situations, we're going to find out relatively quickly.
Only time will tell. Right. So, it's not the best. It's not the note that the Actors Guild left off on. But as you said, it is what it is. So, moving onward to something we haven't talked about in a while, Toonami. Because Toonami has passed a very important milestone.
Oh.
Toonami is, or specifically what we call New Toonami or Adult Swim Toonami, the present incarnation of Toonami has reached the longevity milestone. It is now been on the air longer than the original incarnation of Toonami.
The Saturday afternoons, or the weekday afternoons version, rather?
The weekday afternoon to weekend version.
Yeah.
The weekday afternoon version only lasted until 2004.
Mm-hmm.
Until it was.
And then Magoozy happened. We don't talk about that era.
Yeah. Well, Magoozy happened, and from what I understand, it was because the advertisers were just getting upset about how violent the cartoons that were airing on Toonami were, which is not unreasonable because we don't have time to go into the demographic differences between anime and Western cartoons, especially back in the day.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah, but basically, Toonami on Saturday nights was a better fit, and that lasted for the whole thing lasted for 11 years, and now what started off as a April Fool's joke in the year of 2012 has gone all the way to 11 years and change, and is still going. I hesitate to use the word strong, mainly because the block has been having problems getting new content because of Sony.
Yeah.
It's mainly why.
And also, we have way too many long-form shows that need to burn off.
It's not that. In fact, it's probably good that they have Shippuden and One Piece there, because if they didn't, they'd be hurting even worse. But I mean, they're just getting the Mugen Train arc of Demon Slayer, which is now 3 years old. It was not that long ago when Toonami was getting the latest shonen pretty day and date with the premieres and the dub premieres and all that stuff.
Or
I'm like,
some of the stuff was like the season after the sub finish. They were
right,
either prepping or actually doing the dub.
yeah, and we can still see this with like Doctor Stone. Like the latest bit of Doctor Stone is airing on Toonami.
Yeah.
And
I
that's
think
only
they're
like
doing part 1 of the second season.
no, I think it's part 2.
It's been a while
Like I
since I've
said,
had a chance to follow Konami
you know,
too closely.
plus I'm also having a problem with my smart TV and Sling. Like it says I'm not subscribed to it, and when I go to put in the payment information, it's not recognizing it. I don't know
Ooh.
what's the cause here. It's just Toonami's been in such a doldrum. I haven't really bothered to fix the problem. Like there is some stuff coming in January, like the Entertainment District arc of Demon Slayer and Lyricos Recoil. Bit of a
Ooh.
surprise there. Like, but and there's some original stuff. Thankfully we're done with the Fooly Cooley sequels.
Yeah, I heard, what was it?
Yeah.
Grunge was bad?
Grunge was god awful. There's no other way to say it. Like, it's the worst by a wide margin. Like,
Yeah, the general consensus on that I heard was just go watch the original Fooly Cooley like 3 times.
Yeah, I was extremely suspicious of the entire concept of Fooly Cooley sequels as soon as they said anything about it.
Shoegaze, it's probably the best of the sequels because it actually does something new and different and interesting. Who could have imagined?
What was
That's the actual
Alternative was
spirit of
the one that came out a
FLCL.
few years ago?
Not doing the ATSTs thing. If any series shouldn't be doing that, it's Fooly Cooley.
Huh.
Like
What
I said,
was the
I
one
have
that
an
came out a
extended
few
rant
years ago?
about
Was
this.
it like Alternative or whatever?
I have an extended rant on this stuff, but I don't feel like going in on it because we would be here quite a while. Like,
guys, the sun's coming up, and he's still going. What do we do?
yeah. Anyway, and finally, we'll conclude things by mentioning Fiona and Cake has surprisingly been renewed for a second season. I say surprising because this is definitely a show that seemed to be structured around one season.
And that's the Adventure Time sequel?
It is a sequel / spin-off.
Yeah, it's one of those canonically weird ones.
Yeah, I'm like,
There's a lot
well,
of
it
time
takes a bit of
hopping and bullshit.
explanation if you're not familiar with Adventure Time, because it's starring the gender swap fan fiction versions of Finn and Jake, Fiona and Cake. There's more to it than that, but that's a whole big thing.
There are video essays on this if you're interested, because we do
He's
not
not
have enough
wrong.
time here.
I'm like, but even independent of that, this is the unproduced 5th episode of Distant Lands, the post-series Coda Adventure Time thing from 2020. Like, because they wanted to have Simon, aka the Ice King, in it, but they didn't have like time or the resources to do that, so they stuck him here, and it's really his send-off. Like I said, if you want to know more, just go watch the Fiona and Cake series. I'm like, so it's going to be interesting to see what they do with Fiona and Cake going forward. And of course, I should also mention Gum Lee, even though it's Gary now. Like, Adventure Time's first homosexual male couple outside of those 2 spirit guards that existed for one episode and just had like 5 minutes of screen time at best. I know they're fairly popular and are not the distaff or the spear counterpart to Bubbling, thankfully. Like I said, once again, this is another subject we could talk at length at, but we do not have the bandwidth for. So we'll conclude things here.
All right. Well, I think that was pretty solid, guys. And again, big thanks to our guest, Jeffrey T. Darlington of General Protection Fault, for being on the show with us tonight. That was a nice, lovely little chill episode and interview. And I thank you all for coming out. Next week on the podcast, we will be looking at Crystal McGee of Mystical Comics. And it says, filmmaker and shameless coffee addict. My current project is The Good Night with at Mystical Comics. Adam, do you have any information to expand that with?
I do. I have
Oh.
the marketing materials or the tagline, or anyway, I gotta read this. Trapped in the form of a teddy bear, Sir Alexander, a forgotten knight of the Round Table, embarks on a perilous quest to protect a teenage boy from a vengeful queen's plot to unleash an ancient evil. As realms collide and battles ignite, their journey becomes a test of heroism, sacrifice, and redemption. As they traverse, I'm probably going to mispronounce this because I don't think it's a real word. Zathras.
Okay.
Queen Belladonna's homeworld, enlisting both allies and adversaries to retrieve Jack and thwart the malevolent plans that threat their world and beyond.
Wow. That sounds exciting.
Anyway, so that's what's happening next week.
All right. So that's it for Moonhawk Studios Presents. I will be starting some Mary Skelter Nightmares over at the Mace Palladino on Up Late with Mace at 11. So feel free to stop by, visit us over there, and give us a like, follow. You know the drill. But until then, I'm your host, Mac Paladin. Thanks so much for watching. Stay safe out there, kids.